Today we will be talking about our Unit 5 music theory lesson, talking about the parts of a note as well as the first part of learning about note values. We're going to be learning from the whole note down to the quarter note, which we'll get into that in just a moment. But notes, all they are, again, we've already talked about how a single note head, we've looked at a single note head, it's been called other things, but the note head that you've actually been seeing thus far has been called a whole note. That has a certain type of value given to it for time, because notes in music, they're not just momentary things. They're not just one tone and they're done. Sometimes they are, but music overall, singing, involves holding out a tone. So as you're looking at a piece of sheet music, you need to understand how to read each note so that you'll understand how long to hold a pitch, because if you don't know how long to hold a pitch, you're just going to be standing there singing a note forever until you turn blue and pass out, which we don't want happening. So let's get into learning about the parts of a note. Now, in this lesson, as I said, you'll be learning about the parts of a note, and we'll start off with the quarter and half notes. They have two main parts. The first part is the stem, which is this long stick right here that's attached to this note head. As you see here, this is the note head here, where my cursor is, and that this long stick coming from it is called the stem. The stem helps to differentiate between notes other than a whole note. So as you see, the only two notes that have this stem are the quarter notes and the half notes. We'll get into what those are, identifying those in just a moment. Now, note head, the note head color, aka if it's filled in, solid black, or if it's empty, aka it's white, helps to differentiate between half notes and quarter notes. So that even helps to differentiate even further. And all of those are divisions of themselves. They are divisions of a whole note. And again, we'll get into that in just a moment. Actually, we'll get into it right now. Talking about note values, how long to hold a note. It's also known as note duration. Here's a few things you have to remember. The length of time that a note is played or sung is determined by which type of note is shown. Which type of note head? Does it have a solid head? Does it have an empty head? Is it white? Is it black? That's what I was talking about there. While the placement of the notes on the staff indicates the pitch, if it's higher on the staff, it gets higher in pitch. If it's lower on the staff, it gets lower in pitch. We've covered that in units, previous units. While the placement of the notes on the staff indicates pitch, the duration of the note, how long to hold the note, is determined by the note value. And thus far, we're going to be covering, just for now, we're going to be covering three note values. A whole note, if you notice here, looks like a little tiny donut, which is what we've been using thus far. We've been using a whole note. Thus far, a whole note gets 4 beats. So if you remember back when we were talking about in unit, our very first few units, we were talking about the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's that steady underlying pulse. Each one of these notes that you're going to see holds a certain value, number of beats, number of that underlying rhythm. Okay? So it gets 4 beats. It is empty, there's white, but there's no stem. There's an empty white note head, but there's no stem. That's how you know it's a whole note. Think of it like a donut. It looks like it has a hole in it. So you think of it as a whole note. And if we were to sing this on A440, then we would get this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is what that note would sound like if it were being held out. Now, moving on to the next note, a half note. A half note gets 2 beats. That should be easy to remember, because if you think of math and think of fractions, half the value of a whole note is a half note. It's half the value of a whole note. Each of these are divisions of a whole note overall. Okay? It's empty, has a white note head, and it has a stem. That's how you would differentiate between a half note and a whole note. Also, if you notice too, the whole note looks like it's a completely level oval. The half note and the quarter note, but the half note heads are actually kind of turned. It's almost like someone stuck that stick down inside of it, pulled it up a little bit, and put it in an angle. So that's how you know, that's how you can recognize that is a half note. And we will sing a half note. It gets 2 beats, 2 of that underlying pulse that we've learned about in previous unit, And if we sing this on A440, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now that's 2 individual half notes. If we were to sing them together, as what's indicated here by this graphic, this would indicate 4 beats total. So if you were to divide the whole note, which is 4 beats, these 2 half notes equal the same amount of beats, the same amount of time that you would hold it as the whole note, and you would count it as such. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. That's how you would count these 2 half notes on this staff. Now we can divide it even further, and this is as far as we're going to go for right now. You can go even further in its division, but we're going to hold off on that until a later unit. So half notes. You divide a whole note into 2, you get 2 half notes. You divide a half note into 2, one single half note, you get 2 quarter notes. A quarter note gets 1 beat, 1 pulse of that underlying pulse of the beat. That's what a beat is. It has a filled in black note head, solid black, and it has a stem. This is where the note head will differentiate from a half note, so you can see the difference. So a 1 half note divided by 2 equals 2 quarter notes. So the half note gets 2 beats, 1 half note gets 2 beats. These 2 quarter notes each get 1 beat. So you would count it like this, just 2 together. 1, 1, 1, 1. But if you were to have just that half note together, you would count it as 1, 2, 1, 2. And since we have 4 quarter notes here, and this is a division of a second level division of the whole note, you would count it as such in this measure here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So each quarter note gets a tone. Each quarter note gets a tone. Each half note gets a held out tone that's worth 2 beats. The whole note gets 1 single tone that's held for 4 beats. Okay? So those are the whole, half, and quarter notes. Okay? Now here's another way that you can see the division of the notes. All the notes get their name from the relationship that they have to the whole note, as you can see here. For example, 4 quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, equals a whole note. The only difference here is that the pulse, the tone, the pitch, is played on each beat. So 4 quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, the pitch is played on each note, on each beat. For a whole note, you're holding, sustaining the tone for 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is another way, here's another way that you can think of it. Think of this division of whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes as if you're breaking up a US dollar, okay? 1 US dollar equals 4 quarters, the coins, 4 quarters, okay? But there's also another US denomination of coin that you may not have seen too often. It's an older denomination. It's called a 50-cent piece, okay? Think of that as a half note. So you have $1, that's your whole note, divides into 2 50-cent pieces, also known as half notes because 2 50 cents is half of a dollar, which then those 2 50-cent pieces divides into quarter notes, 2 apiece. So each 50-cent piece gets 2 quarters, 50 cents. So same division here with these notes. Okay? And we will learn some more about these divisions later. It's very mathematical. This is where math can come into play if you're very good at math and fractions. That's one thing that will help you to understand this a little bit better. Okay, so here I have a couple of links here. We're going to look at this here. This is a exercise in note duration that divides it even more so. This page actually goes into more detail, 2 more levels of division, which we're not going to cover right now. But if you want to look at it and get ahead for a previous lesson or next lesson, you're more than welcome to. So this shows that the length of time that a note is played is called note duration, which is determined by the type of note. The whole note has the longest duration in modern music. The half note has half the duration of the whole note. 2 half notes occupy the same amount of time as a whole note. The quarter note is a fourth or a quarter of a whole note. Okay? And each quarter note occupies the same amount of time as 1 whole note. Okay, 2 quarter notes equal the duration of a half note. So you can go through this and learn a little bit more about note duration if it helps to understand that just a little bit better. All right, so now let's watch a quick video talking about the note values. It's very quick, so let's watch this.
The quarter note looks like this. In British terminology, the quarter note is also called the crotchet. If you've studied fractions before, you might expect that the half note is going to be twice as long as a quarter note would be. And you're right. It does equal 2 quarter notes. It's written with an open note head like this. In British terminology, the half note is called a minim. Here's a little piece that contains quarter notes on top and half notes on the bottom, so you can see how they line up with each other.
As you listen to this section here, listen for the lower pitches. The lower pitch, which is going to sound like this, the higher pitch that's going to be on the quarter note sounds like this. And the lower pitch is going to be counted on those half notes. So each of these lower pitches is going to get 2 beats. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so that's how you would listen and differentiate that. The higher notes are going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll notice that those tones sound the same as a half note because there's 2 half notes at the end. Okay, so let's listen, and I'm going to count as each of those is played. So I will count out the beat. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's listen to that again, and I'm just going to tap out the beat this time. You'll hear a tapping sound. So here's this again. Listening to it, here I'm going to give the underlying beat.
And of course, the half note must be half of something. The whole note. The whole note looks like a big, bold oval without a stem, like this. So the whole note will have the same duration as 2 half notes or 4 quarter notes. If the quarter note is 1 beat, the whole note is 4 beats. Of course, 4 quarters make a whole. Here's a different version of that same melody, combining quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes.
Now if you'll notice, look down at the bottom. The whole note is going to be on the bottom, and it's going to be held for 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That happens all while those other notes are played on top, the half notes and the whole notes. So this is the pitch for the whole note on the bottom. This is the pitch for the half note. And here's the pitch for the quarter note. And they'll be played at the same time. I'm going to tap out the beat as this plays. Okay, so I hope that helps you to be able to hear and differentiate between half notes and whole notes, and we will learn more about this as the week goes on. I will have your first assignment posted by Monday afternoon, which is today, and then your test will be posted by Wednesday afternoon. So, and all these assignments again will be due by 1 o'clock on Friday, October the 2nd. Unless something changes where I think we need more time to study for the test, then we'll postpone it and move the test to next Friday. Hope these video helps you to understand again the note values of the whole note, half note, and quarter note. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me and we'll discuss it.